Hey guys, it's Melanie. I didn't think I was gonna make another COCKYGATE video today, but I earlier just filmed a reaction to that old blog post that Faleena made about not crushing your man's balls or whatever. But I can't upload it because YouTube is being a butt, so I'm gonna do this because I feel the need to react and respond to a more recent blog post of hers from today. And it says, romance author Faleena Hopkins on #COCKYGATE, an open letter to my past self. It's a pretty good framing device. She's basically saying, hey, Faleena, of the past, this is what's about to happen to you. It's pretty standard, sort of format for people that are currently being publicly shamed. So the first thing she says is, when your private C&D letter is tweeted publicly, you will not have saved the money by writing them yourself. Since lawyers are so expensive, it just goes on and on about how she spends so much money on publishing, and she was trying to save money by writing a cease and desist letter on her own. Okay, but I have to take issue with this one specific thing. Your private C&D letter. So cease and desist letters get shared publicly all the time. This is a normal thing. If you've been on the internet for 5 minutes, you've probably seen someone post a cease and desist letter that they've received. It's not, like, illegal. In my opinion, it's not unethical, because when someone sends a cease and desist, that is a legal notice. They're declaring their intention to take things into the legal system, which automatically makes pretty much everything public. So I don't really see it as an ethical breach. That's up for debate. It's not illegal. She's kind of implying that there's something, she's definitely implying there's something wrong with it. I don't know if she's trying to imply it's illegal or if she's trying to imply it's unethical. But either way, people tweet out cease and desist letters like every single day. It's not unusual, and if you're gonna send a cease and desist to someone, that is something you have to expect is likely to happen, even if they intend on complying with it, by the way. I don't know if anyone remembers this. There was a viral cease and desist letter from Netflix a few months ago, back around when the second season of Stranger Things came out. There was some pop-up cafe or something that was doing like a Stranger Things themed, thing, and they got a cease and desist from Netflix, and Netflix was very cool about it. They were basically like, look, we know it's a pop-up and you're going to be shutting down anyway, but we legally have to send you this notice, because we have to protect our trademark. And it went viral, even though, the cafe wasn't trying to be snarky about it. So yeah, cease and desist letters go public all the time. This is a normal thing. And she seems to sort of be implying that if she had a lawyer draw it up, then it wouldn't have been tweeted, which I don't think is true. It's something, and regardless, like, if the person chose not to tweet it and still didn't comply, again, it would have gone public regardless. She's putting a lot of emphasis on privacy here. By definition, trademark and legal stuff cannot be private. Like, it's just never gonna be private. So she's saying that sending that cease and desist letter that she wrote herself was the biggest mistake of her life. Okay, fair enough. So she's also acknowledges, when you write those cease and desist letters, you sound like a huge bitch. I'm sorry, but you do. That's how you will look to those who do not know you in person. There's some truth in this. When you send a legal notice to someone, you have to take on a certain tone, and it can make you sound like a bitch. She's not wrong about that, regardless of whether or not you are justified in your action. Sometimes, especially in industries where we're like, oh, we're all a big family, we do buddy-buddy, and we support each other, when someone has to break rank and push back against something, oftentimes it does cause some backlash, again, regardless of whether or not it's justified. People don't like it when you stick up for yourself sometimes, and that's how she's trying to paint this scenario. She's trying to make this sound like one of those situations where someone has had to stick up for themselves. It's a little bit like that, I'm gonna go in a huge tangent, but it's a little bit like that so incredibly uncomfortable and awful Arrested Development interview that was in the news recently, where Jessica Walter talked about having been, harassed and treated poorly by, I know his name. Hey now, Hank Kingsley. Oh my God, what is his name? Jeffrey Tambor. And Jason Bateman was like, oh, you know, we just have to put up with that kind of thing. And, you know, we're all just a big family. And someone actually wrote a great think piece about it. And I'll link it in the description. I don't have it up right now. Someone wrote a great think piece about the use of the term family to excuse, like, unacceptable behavior in a professional environment, especially. And I think that there's something there. There's definitely something there. And I don't want to discount that. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one. She's absolutely right. Faleena is right about this, and that's why this post is so insidious. She's partially correct. She's playing off of things that are true. You know, and how hard it is to, she talks about how hard it is to convince people who don't know you that you're not being a bitch, you're a nice person. Yeah, that's true. She then lists, she mentioned specifically sending a cease and desist to someone who had 120 titles published. I honestly don't know who she's referring to. I don't think she's talking about Tara Crescent because she talks about her later separately. It was such a flurry of like cease and desist and so many people involved. And at this point, the only people that are named in the brief that she filed that I know of are Tara Crescent, Jennifer Watson, I think her name is, the publicist, who clearly isn't the person with 120 books because she's a freaking publicist. She's not an author or a publisher. And Kevin the lawyer. So, yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know who of the people that she's C&D'd she's even talking about here. But she says she felt intimidated because she was trying to C&D someone who has 120 books. Yeah, sure. That anyone would, whether they were justified or not. Then she says the mob proceeds to attack your books, shut down your Instagram. Yeah, that's all bad. I'm not sure how much of this is an accurate representation of exactly how it went down. If people reported her Instagram, like, and got it taken down, like, I don't know. I want to say, like, that sucks. It really doesn't have anything to do with the trademark issue, but she is engaging in really, I don't want to get tied up in this. Let's move past this, because she's saying a lot of things about how she's been harassed, and I think whether or not the harassment's justified isn't really the point right now, and whether or not I don't even want to say that. Like, harassment by its nature is not a justifiable thing. By definition, if someone's being harassed, that goes beyond like what should be allowable in terms of how they ought to be treated regardless of what they've done. It's like this is it's hard to say this without sounding either mealy-mouthed, like I don't want to take sides, when I clearly do have a strong opinion on this issue, but also not wanting to endorse behavior that I think ultimately doesn't help anyone. Like, I don't think leaving negative reviews on her books helps anybody, because it just makes everyone look like we're all, yeah, like a mob. Like, she's trying to characterize everyone who speaks out against her as part of the mob, you know. So if, in fact, these things happen, and I've heard also, yeah, one of her cover models was harassed. That's not cool, guys. He has nothing to do with anything. But here we get to something I actually can respond to. Making countless videos about you, humiliating you, and rejoicing as you lose one social media platform after another. I've never rejoiced about her losing social media platforms. Maybe it's humiliating to have people make videos about you. In fact, I'm positive that it is, but that's kind of what happens when you put yourself out there like this, and you file a trademark and start protecting your trademark. Again, whether justified or not, that is going to be a reaction that happens. They're waiting with bated breath for you to say or do anything so they can jump all over it. Yeah. Yeah, guilty as charged. Just to get more views. Guilty as charged. And everyone who's ever been the subject of, like, an internet shaming, again, whether justified or not, always says the same thing. Like, oh, you're just using me. You're using me to increase your view count. It's like, yeah, that's what people do. Same analogy. I I believe this was in one of the videos that Danny Gonzalez, who's a YouTuber that I really like, he made several videos about Logan Paul and Jake Paul and, you know, their various scandals. And one of the things he says is, you know, a serial killer doesn't say, oh, the media is only reporting on me because they want those views. They're only, you know, making money because of me. It's like, that's not how it works. Like, we are acting as like de facto reporters, and we want to talk about this issue because it's interesting, and it's part of what we want to do as public figures in this industry. That's what's going to happen when you really put yourself out there like this, and you did, Faleena, you did. You put yourself out there. So this is a little summary now. She titles this "Before the Weirdness That Is COCKYGATE." Weirdness is one way to put it, and she kind of lists a history of how she got here, which is helpful. She is trying to make people better understand her, and I do respect and appreciate that. So, in 2017, your books are pirated and published to iTunes to get you kicked out of Kindle Unlimited, for which you must be exclusive to Amazon. Yes, that happens. I know people that has happened to, and it really sucks. She also says that Amazon was offering her like a special promotion for one of her books and ultimately retracted because they discovered it on iBooks and it shouldn't have been there. That is a real issue, and it sucks, and I don't mean to put iBooks on blast here, but they're not doing shit about it, and it really, really sucks. So I completely understand why someone would try to do something like file a trademark to combat that issue, because it is a major problem that iBooks is really sleeping on. She also says you could no longer announce covers on Goodreads because the books would be hit with multiple 1-star ratings before you'd even finish writing them and the title stolen. Yeah, welcome to the industry. No, that's a thing that happens to everyone. I'm less passionate about that problem than the iBooks problem, because the iBooks problem can really seriously screw you over. Goodreads is just, it's a social networking site. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. I know we get really mired in it. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, don't put your covers on Goodreads like early. They can get stolen. Titles will get stolen. Anything you announce will potentially get stolen and or ripped off. And the best defense to that is just putting out a quality product, because really you cannot control that. It's a big part of how this industry works. Books would be hit with 1-star ratings before you'd even written them. People do that. A lot of the times they don't mean anything malicious by it. I actually, back when I was sort of semi-active on Goodreads, I was actually, sorry, my hand that I was holding my phone with fell asleep, and I'm very distracted by that now. So, yeah, when I was active on Goodreads, I'd actually click on some things, and I found that people sometimes use the star ratings as like a classification. Like, they will make a list of like, oh, books that I'm looking forward to in 2018, and then they'll use the star ratings to like try and organize them, because it's an easy way to sort by high rating to low. So because Goodreads is like a personal library site, and it's like for someone's personal organization purposes, it's not really meant for authors, even though we're semi-welcome there. Those kinds of things can happen a lot, and you can't take it too seriously because you'll go insane. Case in point. So, then she gets to the meat of it. A surge of cocky books start popping up. Despite what they will say later, cocky isn't a common trope. If it were, Amazon would include it in their list of keywords for romance. Okay, so there's a lot going on in that sentence. I'm going to start from the back and work my way up to the front. So she links here to Amazon's list of romance keywords, okay? Amazon has certain subcategories for romance, and they have certain keywords you can utilize in order to have your books automatically put into those categories. She is positing that something isn't a common romance trope if it is not on the Amazon list of keywords. It's kind of buried on their site. I will link to the Amazon romance keywords in the description. But there's a whole long list, and it does have quite a few popular tropes on there, like inspirational, interracial, shapeshifter, werewolf. Yeah, it does. It has a lot of them on here. It also has some that I'm not really so sure about, like amnesia. I know that's a trope, but it's definitely, I can't remember the last amnesia book that I saw out there. Like, that's not that popular. International, I don't really know what that means. Gambling, poker, casino. Again, yeah, that exists, but is it popular? I don't really know that that needs its own category, Amazon. Jeez. Again, I'm not meaning to put Amazon's, you know, categories on blast here, but some of these are weird. They also have a category called love triangle, and menage is one of the keywords you can use to get into it. Okay, just to be clear, menage and love triangle are not the same thing at all. They're very different. So, yeah. What's up, Amazon? Anyway, my point is, this is not an all-inclusive list. Stepbrother, hugely popular, not on here. Reverse harem, hugely popular, not on here. Amazon is never going to have an exhaustive list of all the romance tropes, and they're certainly not going to have a separate category for each romance trope. That would be insane. They have a pretty good list here, but it's not all of them, and it's not intended to be. Yeah, so setting that aside, cocky isn't a common trope, she says. Okay, so I think the confusion here is maybe that, I don't know if she totally gets what people are trying to say when they say cocky's a trope. Like, this whole idea of the alpha hole, the alpha male who's kind of a dick and who's, you know, cocky. Ooh, I'm gonna get a trademark strike on this video. No, but you know, that's sort of full of himself and overly confident and needs to be knocked down a few pegs. Are you telling me that's not a romance trope? Because, it is. And I don't even know how to, like, cite that claim with evidence, because it's like saying the sky is blue. Alpha hole is a thing. It is a huge trope in romance. I know Pride and Prejudice isn't even a romance novel, but look at Pride and Prejudice. Going back hundreds of years, Mr. Darcy is absolutely in that category. Like, it's so much of a thing that it's almost synonymous with romance, to the point where if you don't write alpha holes, it can be tough to find an audience in a niche. And I know some people that have struggled with this. People really, really like those overly confident, you know, stuck up. That's why billionaires are so popular, because that is very much oftentimes by nature the way that they are and how they've gotten to where they are. So, yeah. The concept behind the word cocky is what is the trope, not the word itself. A word isn't a trope. The trope is the concept. So, yeah, what she's arguing here is a muddle, more complicated than it sounds. It's a bit of a muddle. So, she is implying through the wording of this as well that cocky books didn't start, quote unquote, popping up until after she started her cocky series, right? So, I looked. Off the top of my head, the first book I can think of with cocky in the title is Cocky Bastard by Penelope Ward and Vi Keeland. Remember that? It was like all over the place when it came out because they're popular authors just everywhere. Cocky Bastard, according to this this Goodreads entry that I am looking at, is a full-length standalone novel. And I had the release date. It was 2015. It came out in 2015. Okay. So, Cocky Roomie, Jake Cocker. Cocker Brothers, A Cocky Series Book 1, Kindle Edition by Faleena Hopkins. According to Amazon, that came out in 2016. I want to say in June. It's always hard to find the release dates. It's, like, prominent, like, on the page when it's linked to in search results, and then you click on it and it's fucking nowhere. Yeah, June 16th, 2016. So, this idea that she was the first to do it in, like, a hugely visible way is definitely not the case. Yeah. When Penelope Ward did something before you did, it's hard to claim ownership of it. But, okay, so she's making the case that cocky didn't become, like, a commonplace thing in romance books until after her series. She might be right. I honestly still don't see cocky that much. It is something that pops up from time to time. It's not, as she's sort of implying, it's not like Stepbrother was. After the Stepbrother trope became, like, massively popular, again, I think it was shortly after Penelope Ward. There's a pattern here. When it really blew up, it was everywhere. You could not turn around without getting smacked in the face with a flaccid Stepbrother book. That's really not the case from my perspective right now. You know, there's definitely, I would periodically see a book with cocky in the title. Not that, they were never that, like, common to the point where, like, now that people have intentionally, like, put together lists of, like, here's all the authors, here's all the books that have cocky in the title, they're able to actually, like, do that in a organized fashion, which demonstrates there's not, like, hundreds and hundreds of them like she's making it sound. Readers are confused. Screenshots have been given to federal court, despite the mob saying you're full of shh. You don't have to censor yourself, Faleena. You can curse on the internet. Yeah, it's, she, as I recall in the brief that she filed, gave one example of one reader who said they were confused. That happens. Readers get confused. A lot of I'll speak to my personal experience. A lot of my readers are not super tech savvy, and they really like ebooks for the convenience of them, but they're not super comfortable with the technology. And I can see how they might get confused because you look on your Kindle, it's like a black and white screen, and it's like tiny little, you know, image and everything. So I'm not disputing that a reader got confused. Readers get confused sometimes, but by and large, I don't think it's a rampant problem, and she's failed to provide any kind of proof that it's a rampant problem. Again, she's got one example of someone who confused two books because they both had cocky in the title, and that's not sufficient evidence to prove that cocky means Faleena Hopkins, which is the argument she's trying to make with this trademark. She says she spoke to 2 authors before filing, and they refused to change their titles. Yeah, I think that that's a perfectly legitimate thing to refuse because it's a word, and she does not have any ownership to that word. At least one extremely prominent book with cocky in the title, in the same way that it's not even phrased differently, like cocky bastard and cocky roomie. If you didn't know better, you might think they were from the same series. If you didn't know that I told you, and you couldn't read the cover, that they're by different people, they have nothing to do with each other, and they came out 2 years apart, or 1 year apart, sorry. Yeah. So, again, she didn't do it first. She didn't even do it most prominently. The claim to ownership is just not there. So if someone came to me and was like, hey, I want you to stop using the word secretary in your book titles, because I did it, I'd be like, fuck off. Like, you don't get to own this word just because you started using it. Even if you have a whole series of 12 books, which is something she says. She's got 12 books, or had at one point 12 books in this series. Minimum of 12 books. Whatever. I don't care how many books. They could have 500 books in a series called even His Secretary. And be like, hey, well, I have these books called His Secretary. Change your book title. No, I'm not going to do that because that's just a phrase that exists and anyone can use it. People have used it after I did. Some of them, I think, pretty clearly trying to capitalize on some of the success of my book. And yeah, fine. that's what happens in this industry. Like, again, you have to expect it. So then she brings up Tara Crescent, the final blow. That is her description. She is your friend in a romance author group. And so basically she's saying she and Tara used to cross-promote, and then Tara decided to be greedy and start her own Cocky series. So, just to be clear, all of this narrative presupposes that we believe Faleena's claim that this has always been called the Cocky series, which is not clear. I believe there's quite a few receipts out there. See, she doesn't pull any receipts, which is quite telling. There's not a single, like, piece of proof in here showing that she was, like, one of the first or one of the most prominent to do this, because she knows she's not. And there's much evidence to indicate that she quick went in and changed the series title right before filing for the trademark. So this notion that, you know, she had this, like, long ownership of it, and then she started asking people, hey, could you change your title? And they were like, fuck you. Yeah. Not really quite what happened. So she says she tried to call Carol Ritter at RWA. Carol wouldn't call back. Sorry, I'm momentarily distracted by an extremely loud noise in my house. It's either someone breaking in or it's my cat scratching something. I'm pretty sure it's my cat scratching something. I'm gonna go with that assumption. So, yeah, Carol didn't call back. She will send her lawyer instead that afternoon. Dramatic period. That's in its own paragraph. She's never totally been clear on this. She said this a few times, but all she says is Carol Ritter sent her lawyer. She doesn't say, she makes it sound like some, like, scary man came and, like, pounded on her door. I don't know if that's quite what happened, but asking someone to communicate with you through legal representatives is not a, like, evil move. It keeps everyone safe. It keeps everything documented, and, you know, you're talking to a professional organization about professional things, and you've already filed a trademark that is in dispute. It makes a lot of sense that they're asking you to speak to an attorney, rather than them directly, because they want to figure out what their options are. You know, this is it's a little hypocritical of her, I think, to be upset that Carol wouldn't speak to her directly, when she started out this whole blog post going on a whole rant about how sending a cease and desist letter makes you seem like a bitch and no one will ever believe that you're a nice person, but you're such a nice person, and why would anyone see you're a nice person? Carol's doing the exact same thing that Faleena is upset about being judged for with her cease and desist. She's doing what she needs to do. Legally, she is protecting herself, protecting her organization, and Faleena doesn't like that. So, yeah, the next line is, thank God you kept all those screenshots, in huge letters, because Tara will also play victim so convincingly that the RW will back her up, not knowing about any of it because they won't talk to you. Well, did you talk to the attorney? Like, what that's why this is so disingenuous, because all she says is, like, they sent a lawyer, but she doesn't say, she's like putting so much out there. And again, I understand if she did have a conversation with the attorney, she wants to keep it confidential, but she's putting all this stuff out there. She's blasting everything out there. Maybe if you'd had, like, just a quiet, private conversation with the attorney, you could have figured something out. I don't know. So she is, she's basically saying everyone's against her. RWB is against her, Cocky Collective, sisterhood, and we're all making videos and smiling. I'm not smiling. I have a resting bitch face, so you're fine. You're good on that. The collective sisterhood never writes to you, asks your side, or thinks of coming together and having a conference call with you, or something where they use their respective power to, you know, talk. So yeah, she's upset that people aren't talking to her. Well, you did. But by your own, like, admission, you had conversations with authors before you tried the trademark and the cease and desist route, where you did ask them to change their title and they said no. Assuming that happened, I don't know that that's true. Haven't seen a confirmation or denial from anyone yet on whether or not she actually did have those conversations, but you know, you had those conversations, and again, there's no law that says that conversations have to stay private. If somebody wants to put something out there, they are allowed to do that. And again, ethically, it depends on the situation. I'm not going to make judgments, but the reason why people don't want to talk to you maybe is because they know it doesn't go anywhere. And also, you're the one that chose to put this all out there. You chose to file for a trademark, you chose to send a cease and desist, and you chose to literally make a federal case out of it by sending in that brief to the courts, rather than allowing the trademark office to complete its administrative process for the dispute, which is what is supposed to be done in these situations. You are trying to get the court to step in and put a stop to it. And there's a reason why that's a saying, like, oh, you don't have to make a federal case out of it, haha, because it's, like, so ridiculous that someone would make a federal case out of a minor issue. That's literally what you're doing. And people know that, so they don't want to talk to you because they know you're going to make a federal case out of it. That's why. So she goes on a little jag here about how she talked to Tara Crescent once about copycat books, and blah, blah, blah. And wait, is she saying that? Oh, no. She didn't talk to Tara. I'm sorry. After Tara bogarted her series, again, just calling a series cocky. So a non-copycatting author wrote to her privately, she's saying, in August 2017 and suggested she file a trademark. So she's kind of putting it on. Now, she's not naming that person, but she's basically saying, this person told me to do it. And supposedly she cares very much about her integrity and her previously clean reputation. She also she said this several times. She says, in accordance with remaining who I am, I vow, me in present day, that if I'm awarded at any time in the future any monies in court in regards to my trademark cases, I will donate 100% of what I am directly given above what my lawyers have more than earned to an anti-bullying charity. I don't think she knows how these things work. She's imagining that she's going to get, like, money on top, like, somehow that she's going to qualify for, like, damages, or she's going to get money on top of what's required to pay her attorneys. That's not how any of this works. It's not how it works. I think she's imagining this scenario where she gets to, like, sue for emotional distress or something. It's not gonna happen. It's not how real life works. She's going to be on the hook for a lot of attorney's fees, and damages for something like this just aren't gonna happen. If she had a legit claim, she might get royalties from people who ripped her off. But that's if she had a legit claim. If. Big if. And that's a separate issue. Like, everything up until her brief that she filed, like, last week, was all being handled administratively through the trademark office. And it could have stayed there. She chose to escalate things to this degree. This is her choice. None of this is necessary. She's making this sound like, I have to do this, I have to be a bulldog and protect my family, my fictional family. She didn't give the trademark office a chance to they probably hadn't even looked at Kevin's protest filing yet. Like, the government takes a long time to do things. She wasn't willing to wait for any kind of ruling from them. She wants to take it straight to the courts. If you've ever met a judge, they really do not like being used as a mediator when something's still in process. They want to be your last resort. So the fact that she's kind of trying to jump over all of that stuff and take it straight to the courts is probably not going to go over well, but that's a separate issue that I want to talk about in another video, because there's a lot going on in that brief that I didn't talk about, and now that I understand a little better, and I have some insight from another attorney who knows a little bit about some of the stuff in that brief, I think that's worth talking about too. But, she ends the article with saying it was just a bunch of, like, positive self-talk. Oh, the people that don't get it, they're not your people, and blah, 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 blah. A bunch of screenshots of people being supportive, and then just, like, some, like, inspirational, like, memes. This is the skin we were born in. It's ours to share or keep. And we have to love it because, well, we're kind of stuck with it. There is no other choice. Why not shine love on our own skin? Tonk Jr. Lewis, Cocky Mother's Day. Okay, so that's like an actual... Sorry. I thought she was, like, sharing inspirational, like, quote. This is a quote literally from one of her own books. I don't want to turn this into a critique of her fiction writing, but this is the skin we were born in. It's ours to share or keep. What does that mean? Share? Am I gonna take my skin off and, like, trade it with someone else's? Like, what the fuck? And just a bunch of, like, fucking nonsense. Like, any writer could pull out a bunch of letters like this. Like, anyone who has any kind of readership can trot out letters from people saying, oh my god, your book changed, let's say. That makes me sound like such a bitch. But you know what I mean? Like, we get nice letters from readers, and it's really nice, and it's sweet, and it's wonderful. This is not the way to use them. She's trying to, like, make herself seem more legitimate, I guess, or try and make the point that, like, she should be above criticism because people love her books or whatever. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Okay. Time for another glass of wine.